there's always this thing that is declared that is going to be how society is ruined. But I think this thing's maybe coming the closest it's ever come. Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 38 of the Sinless Podcast. I'm so happy that you guys are 12 weeks into this. So glad that you are hopefully still writing down your sins on the scorecard. And we're going to talk about the scorecard a little bit today. I've been trying to think of a way to really get it so we can think this scorecard through a little bit. And I think I've got a helpful analogy, but we'll get there. Remember, if by the Spirit ye mortify the deeds of the body, ye shall live. That's Romans 8:13. And that's kind of one of the main verses that we've got going up here. And basically, what I want to do is we were going through the 7 deadly sins, and we've done 2 of them. We've done pride and greed. I want to drop down and I want to talk about doom scrolling for a couple reasons. One, this doom scrolling is it's killing me. It's if it is a sin, it's number one and it's not close. And I am so frustrated by this way that we're all living our lives. Me just as much as you just as much as me. Although, Justin, if I remember right, you said this wasn't a problem because you know they're trying to do mind tricks on you or something.
It helps. Obviously, I still find myself in it, but I don't know. There's something about me thinking about fueling my own destruction. Yep. Like just giving my attention to these things feeds its ability to it's just the metrics. Yeah. Knowing how much attention you're paying to certain things, I know that that's being used against me. So that keeps me from.
And you spend a lot of time looking at a screen already, right? Yes. You know, because that's kind of your job. Yeah. And so that might help a little bit.
Yeah, I want to not be looking at it. Like if I had my way, I would not be looking at a screen anyway.
Yep. So tell me, you and I have had a couple conversations, and you keep saying, "I know the tricks they're using." Help me with that. What does that mean exactly?
Well, maybe a good example is people will talk about the cut rate, like the rate of cuts per second or minute or whatever in movies 20, 30 years ago versus now, and it's insane.
So the production value, the cuts are so much faster and the dialogue is so much faster. Because like when you watch an old black and white movie, you know, they'll do a 2-minute speech, a 3-minute speech, a 5-minute speech in the middle of the movie where the camera just gets on one person and holds. In today's world, there's nothing like that.
Yeah. So that's one of the things that cues me to me giving my attention, and it's less of an algorithm thing and more of just kind of an attention thing. Like if I give my attention to things that are just cut dialogue, like snippets and stuff like that, I'm not able to even think at a higher level. I'm just thinking like a rabbit.
Yep. Yep. When I check my list, is usually, and it is horrible to say, but I'll be working, I'll be doing camp work at night. I bring work home and I'll be writing emails or doing something or developing something, who knows what. And I'll get sidetracked and I'll pull up my YouTube or pull up my Facebook or pull up something and I'll just kind of start scrolling through stuff. And my marker is the video that I already saw. You know, and it's just like when that first one comes back up again, that means I've watched so many videos that the algorithm has run out of options for me and is hoping that I didn't notice that I've seen that one already. And then you look at your clock and you went, there went 30 minutes, there went 20 minutes, there went 45 minutes. And that's so frustrating because that's been my sign. I gotta mark it, you know, and go, what am I doing? And so I want to try to help understand why. I think this is a good one because it's a big frustration for me why that's important. And some of you guys are listening on podcasts. Some of you guys can see on YouTube. But I've got a picture of actually I just took these pictures today of Voyager canoe. So a Voyager canoe at camp is a canoe that can hold about 12 people. Were the Voyagers here in your time, Justin, or was that after your time here?
I think they were.
You
Yeah.
think they were? Yep. So they've been around a long time. Yep. And so at first we used them with the older campers, and eventually we decided we really wanted them here with our first, second, and third grade campers at our Wildwoods camp. And when we started to teach these campers how to get in the canoe and how to go out, the thing about a Voyager canoe is if you're not canoeing in unison, at least by sides of the canoe, you're kind of in big trouble. Also, our cabin leaders have varying comfort levels at steering that Voyager canoe and communicating with the campers in it. There's some of our cabin leaders that have gone up to the boundary waters, which you do quite a bit, right? Which go up to the boundary waters and have taken canoes out for days at a time, and they're just expert canoers or kayakers. My wife and I love to kayak, and so we kayak quite a bit on the lakes around. But there's also cabin leaders that aren't very comfortable in a canoe, let alone a Voyager canoe, and being in charge of all these kids. And so we had gone through trying to help the younger campers figure this out. And we kind of kept going back and forth, and originally we kind of invented a language. This is a Minnesota thing, but the canoes are named Duck, Duck Duck, Goose, and Gray Duck. If you're not from the Minnesota region, you might not know, but in Minnesota, if you call it Duck Duck Goose and not Duck Duck Gray Duck, you are just
Wrong.
you're wrong. Now, being from Michigan, I didn't even know there was a gray duck involved. I didn't. I don't even. I've never even seen a gray duck. Is there such thing? Is there a real gray duck?
We can't tell you because you're from another place.
So, so we named the four canoes. It was actually my son's idea, who was born in Minnesota. We named the four Voyager canoes, the big canoes, Duck, 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 Gray Duck, and Goose. And then we came up with, if you're paddling forward, there's silly things you say. If you stop, you yell bang, like the duck was shot, and you go yell bang, and everybody just puts their paddle in the canoe so you can stop. And there's all these different things, and that still wasn't working with the kids figuring out how to do the canoes. And what we actually ended up doing, and again, this helps if you're on YouTube for this one. We basically built canoes into the ground. And these canoes were just kind of like if you take the top edge of the canoe in the seats and just put them on the ground. And what we have happen is the campers come and stand in their location in the canoe, and we teach them how to paddle. We teach them how to hold the paddle. We teach them the signals, bang, everybody just sticks their paddle in the water. And we go through this thing. It also teaches them their location on the canoe. So when they're in location number 7, when they get into the Voyager canoe, they go into location number 7. And this changed everything with our Voyager canoes. And we can actually have first, second, and third graders that have never been in a canoe before go to this, what we call ground school, learn how to do this canoe, not in the water, not all distracted with all these things, and say, okay, you do this with your paddle when we yell these things. And all of a sudden, the kids can do it in unison out there. Although the picture I'm showing you right now, there's one boy who is not doing in unison. But, that's kind of typical too. They're first, second, and third graders. But our cabin leaders can get in the canoe with them and take them out into the lake, do a circle around a portion of the lake, and come back in. And we couldn't pull that off without ground school. We couldn't pull it off without that practice. We couldn't pull it off without focus. To actually go into the lake and be successful as a team in getting that canoe there and back with a bunch of first, second, and third graders. I think this Sinless scorecard has a parallel to that. For me, when we started doing the scorecard, it had a lot to do with, hey, how many sins am I sinning? So I just kind of know the ballpark, so I know the score of the game. What I think it's actually done over time, and again, you're 12 weeks in, so I assume you're similar to this. you're starting to hear yourself. It shouldn't be starting. You're probably past that. You're hearing yourself about to sin. You're hearing yourself about to do that wrong thing. We were just talking to my daughter Courtney, and she was talking about, I caught myself. I think the sinless scorecard. I think this sinless scorecard is helping us to be mindful of when we're not doing it right. And I think there's a ground school element of that where it's just an average day when average things are going on and we're kind of keeping track of things. But then there's also the real life. We have a canoe. We're in the middle of the lake, and we've got to pull this off and get this canoe back around to where we started. And it's something's really happening, but that mindfulness of those sins is still coming up, and it's still jumping out at us when we're about to exaggerate, when we're being envious of the person next to us, when we're being prideful and that's affecting the way that we're interacting, when we're being slothy and just sitting in front of the TV eating that third bowl of ice cream or nachos for the second time that day. Oh man, nachos. There's something about melted cheese. I'm telling you, melted cheese is probably one of the greatest things ever invented. There's just something about that mindset of knowing that I'm trying to watch these things. So let's get back to doom scrolling, or I like to call it death scrolling. Uh, I'm going to ask you again, Justin. Do you think that's a sin? Do you think it's a sin to have this thing and be looking at it for more than a half hour a day?
I don't think it's a universal
Uh
sin,
huh.
but you said in one episode you said that it's a sin for me, though it may not be a sin for everyone
Yep.
else.
Yep.
I'm perfectly fine with that. I don't. It doesn't. I don't think it's great. I think
Yeah.
you can find better ways to spend your time, but
Yep.
it's. I mean, I think there are things that are not beneficial, but
I
not a
Yep.
sin.
And the reason why I think it's a sin for me, and again, that's a good point. I didn't say that again. Maybe it's not a sin for you. Maybe it's no big deal. For me, it's a sin because I know some things about it. Okay. I know that the more time, a couple things, the least amount of sleep I get, and the more time I spend just scrolling through this, there's actually been studies that say it takes away your creativity. And so and for me, creativity is everything in my job and what I do and how camp programs and all that stuff and new ideas and improvements and stuff like that. That's so important. So when it's taken away creativity, I think it's a big deal. For me, it's also focus. Just thinking about the next episode that we're going to film of Sinless, if I keep just dumping this garbage in my head, my brain isn't thinking on its own about what that next episode should be and those pieces. And then I think for me too, it's also time. When I'm giving that time away, that I think that God has better things intended for me. And sometimes it's time to sleep. Like at night when I get restless, I pull this thing out or look at it. I'm way better off pulling a book out. I'm way better off listening to a book on tape or comedians talking that'll help me go to sleep faster than to pull this thing out and look at dumb things that aren't positive. Now, again, and we say this as we're making a podcast that we want people to listen to, right? Or watch. Is it sinful for us to create a podcast that people will doom scroll? What's your answer to that one, Justin?
Well, I hope that it falls into the category that's beneficial.
Yeah, that
You
is
know,
beneficial.
like
Yeah.
it's a tool. You know,
Yep.
like having a smartphone,
Yep.
having like an RSS feed that you look over from time to time is not necessarily beneficial or harmful.
Yeah, it really
It can
is.
be both.
I was just watching the study about books, and they're comparing a tablet versus a physical book versus a audio book, and they were saying with fiction, basically a story, it really didn't matter whether you were listening to it or or reading it in a physical book or reading it on a tablet, your memories of that book were very about the same between the three formats. However, if it was like a technical book, like a school book, a college level book, or a high school level book, a biology book, let's say you're doing biology 301 in college. If you're listening to that biology book as an audio book, the scores were way down because your brain is not picking that up. The tablets were okay, but the physical book was best because you could move around in what you were looking at, and your eyes could move around, and you weren't distracted by different things. So, a story, listening to the Chronicles of Narnia, by the way, my favorite, only Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe first, never Magician's Nephew first. Just by the way, I don't know how you read them, but that's important to me. If you're listening to the Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, or reading it in a book, or reading it on a pad, that's fine. But when you're trying to do technical reading, which I would think the Bible more aligns with, the technical reading, you should really actually have the physical book in front of you for getting that in your system and getting that to be able to keep place. And so going back to doom scrolling, so for me, you've got time, you've got creativity, you've got focus that can kind of pull me out of what I think I should be doing. And so I grabbed a verse in I won't say that I Google searched it, but I probably did. I grabbed a verse on why it would be bad to be doom scrolling, and I found Hebrews 12, 1 through 2. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, again, that inside joke there, the cloud, right? Let us lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of God. The reason why I picked this one here is when you look at, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a cloud of witnesses, that's going back to chapter 11. And chapter 11 is the by faith Abraham did this, by faith Moses did this. And it's all these listings of these biblical heroes. And these biblical heroes, I think, for their rights and wrongs, because each of them had goods and bads, it's hard to be a hero if we're doing this. It's and maybe I'm wrong, but it's hard to actively live out your faith if you're doing this. And again, I was a child in the 1900s, the 1900 and the 80s, when they said that video games were going to ruin us. When they said music videos, is there even music videos today?
I don't know.
I don't know. When they said music videos were there's always this thing that is declared that is going to be how society is ruined. But I think this thing's maybe coming the closest it's ever come to actually getting ruined. And I'll compare to, I love camp. My whole life, work has been in Christian camps. And one of the things about being in Christian camps is being on staff and hanging out with other like-minded Christians in your college years. And one of the things that really depresses me is when I walk into a group of college students that are looking at their phone and not having conversations that they'll remember the rest of their life, like I remember in my experience. And so, again, I think that pulling us aside and pulling us out of that I think that's where sin comes. I'll read one more section. Proverbs 4, 26 and 27. Ponder the path of your feet, then all your ways will be sure. Do not swerve to the right or the left. Turn your foot away from evil. Again, I think of people looking at their phones and walking into windows and walking into posts, and they're not pondering the path of their feet. They're not making their way sure. But I'm going to grab this ESV Study Bible. Thanks, J.I. Packer again, where it says, vital to keeping the heart formed in wisdom, okay, in order to keep the heart formed in wisdom, it is the need to recognize and stay on the path that will shape it further in the way of righteousness. Do not swerve to the right or the left refers to both attending to where the path of your feet is going and seeking to stay on the right path and turning your feet away from evil. Um, for me, this thing does not keep me on the right path. For me, watching whatever shows up on the screen as I'm scrolling brings me to bad things, brings me to things that I shouldn't be allowing in my eyes, brings me to thoughts that aren't productive for me, brings me to not the way of righteousness. And so for me, that's why I say doom scrolling or death scrolling is this sin, because I think I'm not in control of my path when I hand my path over to this phone. I hand my path over to an algorithm. So for me, doom scrolling is definitely something in my life that I'm trying to kill. Some days successfully, some days horribly unsuccessfully. You can join me in that being a point for you, or if it's not, take on something else. But I just wanted to wrap our minds around one, the scorecard, in it's practicing for those moments when we're really out on the lake, and two, that distraction that's taking us away from the things of God and being focused on the things of God.